Let's look at the software STATA and get some data into it. Throughout these videos, if you see bold on the slides, it indicates that it's an action for you to do. So do something on your computer. The first thing we're going to do is save some files, just so that we've got some data to play with during the workshop. On your C drive, I want you to create a folder, and I want you to call that folder STATA Workshop. So I'll demonstrate that. I go to my C drive. If you don't want to use your C drive, that's absolutely fine. You can use another drive as long as you remember what letter it is. And I'm going to call this new folder STATA space workshop and have a capital S and W. And then I'm going to save some files into that folder. Just above where you found this video in the VLE, there's some files. Those are the files that I'm going to get you to save. So there's a do file, and we'll talk about what a do file is. There's also some data there. I've purposely saved this data as an Excel file because I think that's quite a common format for people when they're collecting their data. So all it is a GDP and debt of different countries. And then I want you to save another file, which is a .dta file, and that's how data is saved in STATA. So this one is just the population of different countries. So I'll demonstrate that. If I go to the VLE, here's these files here, as well as a PDF of the slides. Let's look at let's save a do file first. I'm going to download that. The way I'm going to do it is I'm just going to get it to show me where it's downloaded it into my downloads folder, and then I'm going to cut it from there and put it into my C drive where I've got my STATA workshop. The next one, let's have a little look at this Excel file. So I'm actually going to open that one up just to look at it. And you'll see here that there's 36 countries. And then we've got GDP, debt GDP ratio, the debt of a country, the share of the debt out of all these countries. And then we've got a region and an income. And all what might be useful for you to notice is that country, region and income are all written in words. So they're what we call string data. And then we've got these columns which are all numbers. I'm going to save that in my folder as well because we're going to use it. Let's close that. And then the third file is this .dta file. So download that, show me in the downloads folder, and then I'm just going to cut it and save it in this folder here. Right, that's us set up now. So let's talk about the STATA software. STATA is on all university IT managed computers that you find around campus. If you want it on your own personal laptop, the university does currently have a license, but that's only if you're in the departments of social science of the social science faculty. If you're not sure whether your department's in the social science faculty, I've given you a link here, and that lists the departments there in case that's useful for you. If you want to install STATA on your personal laptop, then the IT software pages are really good for that. So here they have pages for all different types of software. You want to click on obtaining the software and it gives you some nice instructions there. I've already installed it, so I'm going to open up STATA. I want you to go to Windows, just scroll down to S, and we find STATA there. So this is a STATA interface. We've got the big window in the middle, that's the results window. And then we've got a command window below that at the bottom. And I'm going to get you to explore how that command window works. So the first thing we're going to type in is the command display and tell it that we want it to display hello. And then we'll press return, and that gives that command to STATA to run it. Just to show that you can do that with numbers as well, we can use display again, but this time we can say 4 plus 4 and we can run that. And what you'll notice is that that command is repeated in the results window as well as the answer in the results window. I'll just demonstrate that in STATA. So this is the results window here, and this is the command window here. So let's just type display, and we're going to use speech marks to put our string data in here. If I press return, you'll notice that it's done what I told it to, because it says it's printed hello, it's displayed hello, but it also gives you the command there. So let's just try that with 4 plus 4, let's say. Press enter, and it gives us the answer as 8. And if you want to explore where the spaces are important and where they're not, so just to demonstrate that, if we don't put spaces between the plus and the 4, it's okay, it still does it. We can, oh well, let's do that. Let's make a spelling mistake and you'll see what happens. You get a little red error message. Don't worry if that happens. Let's see what happens if we don't put a space between the display and the 4 plus 4. So it doesn't recognize it. So that space after the command display is really important. At this point, I'm going to tell you about how to get help in STATA. One of the ways to get help is to use the command help, which is nice and intuitive, easy to remember. So we can just type in help display, and I'll show you what happens. So we're just asking for help on this command display here. You get a window popping up, and the window contains sort of instructions behind that command display. So what I tend to find useful is this section here which says description. That sort of tries to explain to you what that command does. And the other thing that I find useful is the example section at the bottom. I just think it's easy to see how you use it with an example. Helps me to understand. Let's close that help window. Other ways of getting help when you're using STATA, you can Google your question. Just be careful in how you word that question to try and get the answer that you need. And then if you want a book, the most popular STATA book is A Gentle Introduction to STATA. I always like that name. And it's quite generic. There are other STATA books available that are more discipline specific if you prefer, but this one is doesn't matter what you're studying. So just looking at this STATA interface again, on the left we've got a review window. So I'm talking about this window here on the left. You can see there that it's displaying all the commands that we've given it so far. And then the other thing we've got are menus along the top. What we can do is use menus to do something, or we can use commands. So to demonstrate that, let's use the menus to open up an example dataset so that we can play around with it. I'm going to go to File, Example Datasets, and then choose Example Datasets installed with STATA. So these are just datasets that come with the software when you install it. And we're going to use a dataset called Auto, which is all about characteristics of cars. It's quite a famous database. It's useful to get familiar with it. And we'll click Use. So you'll notice Auto has a suffix of DTA. We've already mentioned when we downloaded the population.dta that they're data files. And once we do this command using the menus, um, the command itself will be generated, and we'll see that in the results window as well. So we're going to see this sysuse auto.dta, and hopefully you can appreciate that that's just running that's a lot simpler than going to each one of these options in the menus. So to do that, go to File, Example Datasets is here. And then we've got example datasets installed with STATA. And there's auto.dta. I'm just going to use press Use. Close that window. And you'll see that this window here's changed. That means we've got data into STATA now. You can see that the command's there. So still not finished explaining the STATA interface. We've got two more windows to look at. We've got a window on the top right called the variables window and a window on the bottom right called the properties window. I'm just going to get you to click through the variables to see what they show you. So going into STATA, this is my variables window. So if I click through there, you'll notice that on the bottom window, the properties window, the information changes. So these are all our variables in our dataset. The other useful thing in STATA interface is the little icon, which is a grid with a magnifier on it. And if you click that, you can actually see your data, you can view your data. There's another little icon which is the same grid, but it's got a pencil on it. I wouldn't recommend clicking that because that enables you to edit your data and you might forget how you've edited it. So in here, these are the two that I'm talking about. If I click this, it's called the browse command, you'll see that this is our data here. So these are all different makes of cars, I think from 1970s or something, and these are all the different characteristics of the cars, and that can be useful just to quickly check your data now and again. I'm going to remember to close that. And this is the button that I wouldn't recommend clicking. It will give you the exact same view, except you'll be able to edit them. I just wouldn't click it because you will accidentally mess around with your data. What we've done so far is put commands into that command window, but actually that's not the best way of using STATA. I would strongly recommend that you type your commands and all sorts of comments about what you're doing with your data into what's called a do file. The beauty of do files is that you can save the do file and open it another day. And then you've got a record of what you've done. And that's really useful if you go back to a project after many months. If you just did commands using the command window, or if you use the menus to carry out actions in STATA, you wouldn't have that record of how you treated the data. So let's just say that you wanted to create a new do file. What you could do is click the pencil and pad icon, and that would give you a new do file. But what we're going to do is go to File and Open, and we're going to open that file that I got you to save at the start of the workshop. And that's because I've created a do file for you, which will be easier to explain STATA. So I'll just demonstrate how you would get a new do file. This is the icon here. If you click that, this is what you'll get. This is a do file. I'm going to close that one because instead we're going to open up the one that we saved previously. So I'm going to navigate to my C drive. I'm going to navigate to my STATA workshop, and that's my do file there. So here you go. This is do file. What I tend to do is have my do file in this area of my monitor and have the other window of STATA open there. So use a script during this workshop. Afterwards, please do feel free to copy and paste any of the commands from it into your own do files. So now it's a little bit different running a command from a do file. What you have to do is select or highlight that command, and then you hold down Control and D. So I'm going to select display hello and Control D, and that will do the same thing as if I wrote it into the command window. Then we're going to repeat that for the display 4+4. So let's do that. So here I can click and drag and highlight it, press Control D, and it displays hello. The other way of doing it is clicking on the number on the left here, and that highlights your command. Then press Control D. You'll notice in this do file that I've added comments using stars. I'd encourage you to write comments all over do files. You're welcome to edit the do file in just now during this workshop with anything that you want to remember. So let's just practice that. Let's just say we want to put in a reminder of how to run commands. So under the commands that we've just run, let's type in star to run a command, highlight that command and Control D. To run a command, highlight that command and Control plus D. And you'll see that when you write anything after a star, it comes out in green. The other thing you can do is use a slash and a star, write something on several lines, and then at the end do a star and a slash. We've already got some data in, and if you're switching from software such as R or SPSS, one of the differences with STATA is that you're only allowed to have one data set in STATA at a time. So what we're going to do now is drag in another data set. We're going to get in our GDP debt data set. And in order to do that, we have to clear out this auto DTA data. So I want you to run clear to remove that. If you scroll down, you'll see you've got this command clear here. I'm going to highlight that, Control D, and you'll notice that it disappears from here. To get data in, you're going to have to tell STATA where that data is. So you have to tell STATA what drive it's in, i.e. the C drive, and what folder the data's in as well. There's a few ways of doing that. the way I'm going to demonstrate to you is using a command called cd, which stands for change the directory. So in other words, we're changing the drive and the folder that STATA needs to look in order to get our data. So going back to STATA, on your do file, highlight that command here. I'm just going to change that to C. I'm not using my M drive anymore. And Control and D. And it seems to be happy with that. Now we're ready to get our data into STATA. You can see we're going to use a command called import Excel. Then we put in the name of the data set and what type of data file it is. So this is an Excel file. And we've included another command here, which is first row. That just specifies that that first line of the Excel file contains the variable names. Highlight that, import Excel, Control D, and now you can see that we've got in that data set of 36 countries. You can see that there's something there in the variable window. But there is another alternative way to read in your data and set the working directory at the same time. If we did import Excel, we could then, in speech marks, put in the drive, the folder, and the file name all in the one row. We'd still have to put in first row. So if you prefer to do that because it's one line of coding opposed to two, that's an alternative. There's other ways of getting your data in though. You could just copy and paste from Excel and then in STATA open that browse editing icon that I said you shouldn't do. That is one way of doing it. Or you could go to File, Import an Excel spreadsheet. So what I mean by that is in here we would go into Excel, highlight our data and copy it, and then we'd click on here and we would paste it in. I'm not going to do it that way though. The other way is File, Import, and then you can see Excel spreadsheets there, along with a whole load of other types of file. So if you do want to read in other types of file, here's some code for you. You could just use the name of the file if it's a STATA data file, if it's a .dta file. If you've got CSV or text, it's import delimited. And if you're switching from SPSS and you've got all your data as .sav files, there is an easy way of doing that as well with import SPSS. So we've got our data in. We might want to view our data. If you want to test yourself, you can stop the video, go into STATA and see if you can remember how to do that. We have done it a couple of times already. Or you can type browse in and that'll give you the same view. So I'll demonstrate that now in case you can't remember how to do it. Here is where you would click to view your data. Alternatively, you can just, well, let's do it in our do file. Type in browse and view the data that way. It does the same thing. The other thing I like to do when I read in data is just get a little summary of it, a little description of it, just to make sure that STATA's read it in the way that I want it to and it looks okay. So we can do that with using the command describe. And then you can try using describe with the name of a variable and see what that does. And we can also look at what list does. So here's describe. If I reduce my do file, you'll see that you've got the variable names. It tells you've got 36 observations. And you'll see here that country, region and income, it's saying that they're a string data, so this is calls it storage type, whereas double is used for a specific type of numeric data. So that looks right to me, so I'm happy that Stata's behaved itself, if you like, there. And then if you use describe with the name of one of the variables, so let's control D that, you just get the same information but for that one variable. If you want to look at list, let's find out what this command does. And move my do file. You can see that it gives you a view of the data. So it's similar to viewing the data. That's it. The next thing you'd want to do is clean your data, so you can move on to that video now.